This is the Possible Care for Dogs. The podcast begins.
Welcome to a new episode of the Possible Care for Dogs podcast. Here on the Deep Dive, we really jump into the source material you send our way. Articles, notes, research, all of it. We try to pull out the most important bits, and today we're focusing specifically on Pug Health. We're going through the info. We got to find the absolute must-knows for taking care of these, well, truly unique little dogs. Think of it as, your essential guide to pug care.
It's definitely a topic worth diving into. Pugs are just full of personality, but their distinct physical features mean they need specific, informed care. We're going to focus on those common health issues that came up in the sources, and maybe more importantly, figure out the best ways you can help them really thrive.
Okay, yeah, let's get into it. Anyone who spent time with a pug knows the sounds, the snorting, the snoring. Sometimes it sounds like a real effort for them to breathe, and the source material flags this straight away. Brachycephalic obstructive airway syndrome, or BOAS. It's tied directly to their short faces. That's why they can struggle to breathe, snore like that, and get hot so easily.
And what's really striking from the research we looked at is just how common this is. There was one study, I think it was in canine genetics and epidemiology, that found something like 91% of pugs have BOAS to some degree.
91%, wow.
Yeah, it's not a minor issue for the breed. It's almost, standard. And it happens because their facial structure, well, it restricts their airways. It's kind of like us trying to breathe normally through a really narrow straw.
Okay, 91%. That really hits home. It's not just a cute snuffle, it's a serious health thing for pretty much all of them. So thinking practically, based on the sources, what can pug owners actually do day-to-day to help?
Right, so the sources give some pretty clear, actionable advice. First off, temperature control is huge. Pugs just can't cool down efficiently by panting like other dogs. So keeping them cool, keeping them inside when it's hot, that's absolutely essential, non-negotiable. Another thing, simple but really important, use a harness, not a collar.
Oh, interesting. Why specifically a harness?
Well, a collar puts pressure right on their windpipe, their trachea, which might already be a bit narrow or compromised. A harness spreads that pressure out across their chest instead, much safer. The sources also mention that for pugs with more severe breathing issues, you should definitely talk to your vet about possible surgeries. Things like widening the nostrils or trimming the soft palate can genuinely make a massive difference to their breathing and quality of life.
Right, managing heat, switching to a harness, those sound like really key first steps. Okay, so moving on from breathing, let's talk about food. Pugs have a reputation, don't they?
They absolutely do. Food lovers through and through. And the source material is pretty direct about the risks here. Their love of eating, plus their body shape, and sometimes, their limited ability to exercise vigorously, it makes them really prone to putting on weight. And this isn't just about how they look. Being overweight makes all the other problems worse. The breathing, strain on their joints, it can even affect their eyes because of the pressure.
Ah, so it's like a feedback loop. Weight makes breathing harder, which makes exercise harder, which makes weight management even tougher.
Exactly that. And the data backs it up. Research from the Royal Veterinary College, mentioned in the sources, showed pugs are nearly twice as likely to be obese compared to other dog breeds.
Twice as likely? Okay.
Yeah, that extra weight puts a significant strain on their whole system.
So given that high risk, what specific diet or feeding strategies did the sources really push for managing pug weight?
Precision. That's the main message. No free feeding, ever. You have to measure out every single meal. Focus on food that's high quality, packed with nutrients, but controlled in calories. The sources strongly advise cutting way back on typical dog treats, the high-calorie ones. Instead, try local alternatives. Small bits of carrot, maybe some green beans. Lots of pugs actually love them.
Veggies as treats, huh?
Yeah. And there was some compelling research mentioned, I think, in veterinary research communications that linked calorie restriction in these short-faced breeds, like pugs, specifically to better breathing and easier movement. It really shows how much diet impacts their unique issues.
Oh, and using puzzle feeders is another great tip from the sources. It slows down their eating, stops them bolting their food, and gives them a bit of mental exercise, too.
Makes sense. Slow them down, make them think a bit for their food. Good idea. Okay, let's shift focus to maybe their most recognizable feature, those huge, expressive eyes.
Ah, yes, the pug eyes. They're gorgeous, truly. But the source material is right to flag them as, well, quite vulnerable. That classic look comes from having really shallow eye sockets. It basically leaves the eyeball more exposed than in other breeds.
And that exposure leads to specific problems. The sources mention things like proptosis, corneal ulcers, pigmentary keratitis. Exactly. There was a review in veterinary ophthalmology that confirmed this. It noted how common corneal ulcers and that pigmentary keratitis, where pigment grows over the eye surface, are in pugs.
Right.
It's directly linked to those shallow sockets. The surface of the eye is just much more open to getting injured or irritated by dust, debris, you name it.
So how can owners protect these very delicate eyes? What are the preventative steps?
Well, the sources suggest being mindful during playtime. Avoid really rough games, especially with bigger dogs. An accidental knock to the face could be serious. That proptosis you mentioned, that's when the eye actually pops out of the socket. That's an emergency.
Okay.
Yeah. Gentle cleaning around the eyes with a bit of saline solution is okay if you see gunk building up, but generally, don't wipe the eyeball itself.
Yeah.
And the sources are really emphatic about this. If you see any sign of trouble, like squinting, redness, extra tearing, any cloudiness, get to the vet immediately. Don't wait. Treat it as an emergency.
Right. Urgency for eye issues seems critical. Got it. Now let's talk wrinkles. Also very cute, but potentially troublesome.
Those adorable face and tail wrinkles, yes. Incredibly charming. But the sources correctly point out they can be little traps for moisture and dirt. This creates the perfect warm, damp environment for bacteria and yeast to grow. That leads to irritation, inflammation, what's known as skin fold dermatitis.
Skin fold dermatitis. Okay, so how do we keep those cute folds clean and healthy, not irritated? What's the routine?
It really comes down to daily care. The source advises wiping out the folds every day. Pay special attention to the deep ones on the face, and don't forget the tail pocket, that little fold right at the base of the tail.
Tail pocket, right. Didn't even think of that one.
Yeah, it can get missed.
Yeah.
Use pet-safe wipes, the kind made for this, or even just a damp cloth followed by a dry one. The absolute key step, though, is making sure the folds are completely dry afterwards. Moisture is the big enemy here. If you do start seeing redness or irritation, the sources suggest talking to your vet about specific medicated wipes or maybe an antifungal cream.
Daily cleaning, thorough drying. Simple, but sounds essential. Okay, so beyond these really common pug-specific issues, breathing, weight, eyes, skin, the source material also talked about their overall sort of holistic care. What were the main takeaways on general things like nutrition, grooming, exercise needs, vet visits, and their emotional side?
Right, the sources piece together a pretty full picture. For nutrition, building on the weight thing, it emphasizes high-quality kibble that's high in protein but lower in fat. Ideally, a formula for small breeds or even specifically for brachycephalic dogs, as the kibble shape might be easier for them. They also mentioned adding omega-3 fatty acids, good for skin, good for joints, both important for pugs.
And grooming seems like it involves more than just a quick brush.
It definitely does. Brushing regularly, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, helps with the shedding. But that daily fold cleaning, including the tail pocket, is really crucial, like we said. Weekly ear cleaning is important too. Their canals can get infections, monthly nail trims, and bathing maybe every 4 to 6 weeks using something gentle like a hypoallergenic shampoo because their skin can be sensitive.
Okay. What about exercise? We know they're not exactly marathon runners.
Definitely not. The sources recommend gentle, moderate activity. Think maybe 20 to 30 minutes a day a walk, some supervised play. But the big warning, again, is avoid the heat and avoid really strenuous stuff that makes breathing hard for them. The source highlights things like indoor play, hide and seek, puzzle toys. These aren't just for physical movement, but also for mental stimulation. Actually, there was an interesting point from a study, I think in animals, MTPI, suggesting that pugs who get more mental stimulation show fewer signs of stress and might even manage their weight better.
Mental exercise helping with stress and weight. That's fascinating. Good link. And what about their preventative vet care schedule? What's recommended?
The sources suggest getting a BOAS assessment from your vet starting around 1-year-old, when the signs usually become clearer. Annual eye exams are also a really good idea, given their eye risks. And of course, regular weight checks are vital. Early spaying or neutering is usually advised, and the sources make a very practical point. Because of the potential for health issues down the road, especially surgery for BOS, you should really consider getting pet insurance early on. It could be a smart financial move for pug owners.
That's sensible advice. And lastly, their emotional needs. The source called them Velcro dogs.
That really sums them up perfectly. The sources stress how incredibly people-focused pugs are. They're happiest right there with their humans. This also means they can be prone to separation anxiety if left alone too much. They thrive on routine, lots of positive reinforcement. They can be quite sensitive to being told off, and tons of affection. Snuggles are usually mandatory.
Haha, mandatory snuggles.
Pretty much. The sources talk about their deep bond with their families, how gentle they often are with kids, and they even mention some data, I think, from frontiers in veterinary science, showing pugs score higher on tests, measuring how oriented they are towards humans compared to many other breeds. They truly live to be with their people.
Wow. It really sounds like you need to understand both their physical challenges and their huge need for companionship to keep a pug happy.
That's exactly it. The sources are clear. Yes, they need diligent, specific care because of how they're built, but meeting those needs lets their amazing personalities shine, and it's incredibly rewarding.
So, wrapping this up, what's the bottom line for anyone who loves a pug or maybe is thinking about getting one?
It's definitely a commitment. You have to be ready to pay close attention to those unique needs. The breathing, the weight, the eyes, the skin folds, and their really significant emotional need for closeness. But the sources consistently suggest that if you provide that focused, dedicated care, what you get back is just this incredibly devoted, joyful companion who can be with you for a long time. Absolutely. Understanding these specific needs isn't about seeing them as fragile. It's the key to unlocking their happiest, healthiest life possible.
Now, if this deep dive into pug health has sparked some thoughts, maybe raised questions, or if you have your own tips and experiences caring for pugs based on what we've talked about, we'd genuinely love to hear from you. The source material actually invited listeners to share their thoughts, questions, suggestions, and experiences about pugs and their health over on YouTube and TikTok. So please do head over there and join the conversation with the Pawsible Care for Dogs community. Let us know what you think.
And maybe here's something to think about. When we consciously adapt how we care for them, managing the heat, cleaning those wrinkles carefully, choosing the right food, knowing the signs of trouble when we adapt to fit their unique physical form, how does that change how we see them? How does it deepen our appreciation for their huge spirit and that unconditional love they give? It really reminds you that the bond we have with our animals is truly a two-way street, built on understanding and that commitment to care.
That's a powerful thought to end on. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.